Welcome back to Self-Host Sundays, and if you've been showing off your media server to your friends and family, you might have had this question. Oh, can you get anything? Could you get this film? Could you get this TV series? And at first, it's, yeah, of course, yeah, one off, and then what will happen is those requests will start building. Now, what if there was a solution where rather than pestering you and mithering you, especially when you're out and about trying to live your life and touch grass, what if they were able to request their own media on your server? Let's take a look at Seerr. Hello, so welcome to Seerr, and this is probably one of, if not my favourite apps that I run on my media stack, purely because it allows my partner, her family, to request their own movies and TV shows rather than mithering me. So we're just going to click Get Started. We're going to go to the Docker setup, and we're going to come down and get this Docker Compose. So by now, you should be very familiar with how these work. So we're just going to copy all that. We don't need the services bit. And then we're going to jump over to our server. So we're going to go to our Compose configuration. We're going to scroll all the way down. And I'm just going to add episode 4 requests. And there we are. So we've got Seerr, we've pasted it in, and we don't have to fix any of the white space, which is always great to know. So we've got our container name, we've got our image. So this was formerly known as Overseer or Jelly Seerr, but they've now combined the two into a single Seerr. So whether you're running a Jellyfin or a Plex server, it's a single app. So most of this is already populated for us. So I'm just going to change the time zone to my usual. Obviously, make sure you change it to your time zone. And then for the config file, which the app is going to refer to as /app/config, we are going to create our folder. So I'm going to go to my normal media server folder, and I'm just going to create a Seerr folder. And there we go. So I'm going to grab that, copy it, and then I'm just going to paste it in there just before that colon. So that should be pretty much all we need for now. Obviously, we've got our port set up, so the default port is 5055, and then we're going to redeploy it. Pull the latest image just to make sure if there's been any changes to any of the other images, it will get them as well. So there we are, downloading Seerr, and then it will set up the container. And there we are, that has been deployed. So we'll just clear that off, and then we'll do our usual. So we're going to go to our IP address, and we're going to go to port 5055. So 192.168.1.58.5055. And this is Seerr. Now, Seerr has some great onboarding, which a lot of these apps don't seem to have. So take note. So depending on what service you're using, Jellyfin, Plex, or MB, then go through and follow the configuration steps. I'll be using Plex, so I'm just going to log in with my Plex account, which should already be logged. There we are. So firstly, I'm going to hit this refresh button, and it's going to fetch my servers. Local IP there, and the 32400 port. We'll save those changes. Once you save those changes, it will pull through your libraries. So I'm going to hit movies, TV shows. I'm going to sync those libraries. We'll start the scan. There we go. So now we're going to add our radar and our sonar instances. Now you can add more than one. I know that some people, and it is listed here, some people have a separate instance for 4K content. Some will have one for non-4K content. I just prefer to use one for everything. So I'm going to add a new radar server. It'll be a default server. The server name will be radar. The host name will be the usual. Port is already populated there, 7878. Obviously, if you've changed the port, make sure you update it there. Get your API key from there. So I've got my API key. And then if you go down to the bottom and hit test, it's going to pull through all your quality profiles and your root folders. Now, we want to enable scan. Or we want to tag the request. So what this is going to do is we're going to set up some users. And then when they request something, it's going to add their name to it. So we know who's been requesting all this crap that's on my server, and you can point the fingers. So when you hit test, it's also going to pull through your quality profiles and your root folder. So for quality profiles, what I do for these is anything that comes in will automatically go to low quality 1080p. That's the profile I set up in last week's episode. The reason for this being is you don't want your server filled with other people's absolute crap. So you can always be in charge of it. Our root folder, we're just going to use our movies folder. And then for minimum availability, I just changed this to announced. So if it's a brand new movie that you've just seen a trailer for, you can add that straight away. And then for tags, I just leave this blank because I've already got it tagging the request. So then we're going to test it again. Yep, connection successful. And then add the server. And now we're going to do the exact same thing for Sonar. Okay, so default server, yes it is. Sonar. And then I'm going to pop in my IP address, 8989. I've got my API key here. I'm going to test it. We'll enable scan. And then we'll tag the request. So the reason we enable scan, as it says there, is it will scan for things that we've already got so people can't request them if they're already there. I believe they have added a new feature where when you're browsing Seerr, if you already have the content, it should hide it, although I believe it's still in an early beta, so I don't actually know how reliable that is. So once we've tested, our series type will be standard. So obviously if you watch daily series, then you'll have to set up an additional profile. But for now, just standard will do 99% of people. Quality profile will do the low quality again, root folder, TV, tags will leave blank, anime, series, I'll treat as anime series. And then again, low quality 1080p and root folder. Season folders, this will keep individual seasons within the folder. So for example, you'll have a TV show, then season 1, season 2, etc. Monitor all new seasons. I leave this as all. So anytime people add a series, if a new season comes out, it automatically gets monitored. And then we'll add the server. So this is Seerr, and I think this is, again, probably my favorite app. So what we can do is you can see what movies are currently trending. You can set filters for movies and series and things like that. You can just scroll through. You can click on a movie. You can find similar recommendations or similar titles, and then you can request them from here. So, for example, Hot Fuzz, one of my all-time favorite movies, I can click into it and I can request it. I can set the profile. Now, as Hot Fuzz is one of my favorite movies, I don't mind getting the 1080p HQ one. And then I'm going to tag it as me and then request. So what this will do, if I drag my radar window, I've added, so on my options, I've added the added column so we can see when things were added. So 3:39 p.m. when I'm filming, and you can see it's already added. It was instantaneous. It's sent it straight to my downloads. So if I check my SAB, and then that is going to transfer straight over to my Plex. And it was that easy. So you can import your Plex users in the users tab using this button here. So if you share your server with friends or family, you can just import them and they can log into Seerr through their Plex account. Or you can create a local user, set a username, an email address, password, and they can log in directly to Seerr with that. So for settings, obviously, we've just added some users. I'm going to enable that hide available media that I mentioned a moment ago. Again, it's in experimental, so I'm not sure how accurate it is, but we'll see how we get on. You can also allow things like partial series requests. So if someone wants to request a specific season of a series, they can do so. If you disable this, they can only accept all of it. So I'm going to enable partial series requests. I'm also going to allow special episode requests. Next up, for users, so you can enable local sign-in or disable it if you only want Plex users. I'm just going to enable all of these. You can set request limits. If you've got people who will just hammer your server, you can set this to a specific one. I'm quite lucky, so I just do unlimited. Now, this is the default permissions that are assigned to all new users, so you can get them to manage requests, you can get them to auto-approve, auto-request, or manage issues. So I'm going to allow manage issues. So for example, if one of my movies is in the wrong language or it's not the movie that it says on the tin, then people can report that and it'll send me a little ping and I can fix it. You can also enable auto request. So this hooks up to the Plex watch list. So if they add a movie to their watch list, it will automatically request it. I'm going to leave this off. You can also auto approve, because if any users other than yourself request media, you have to manually approve it. So depending on your use case, you can either make sure that you have the final say over what goes on your server, but for mine, I just tend to leave this on auto approve because I don't tend to mind too much. So next up, we're going to look at remote access. I was going to do this as a separate video, but I thought whilst we're discussing Seerr, it's best to do it now that we're here. We're at that bridge, so let's cross it. So we're going to create a whole new project. I'm going to call this one Proxy. For storage path, I'm going to make a new folder because it's a new stack. I don't want this as part of my media server because I will be using this for other things in future. So I'm going to create a folder in there and I'm going to call this Proxy. I always like making sure my folder names match the project names. Obviously, that is entirely up to you if you choose to do that as well. So we'll create that folder. So here is a YAML that I used to run on my old server. So again, a version of this will be uploaded to my GitHub, so you can just copy and paste this just to help you get started. So I'm just going to update some of these file paths because I'm trying to keep my server nice and tidy. So I want to make sure that I've got everything in the correct folders. So we've got Nginx Proxy Manager and Cloudflare. Now, the way this is going to work is we are going to purchase a domain name. So you will have to spend a few dollars. Normally, they are dirt cheap. I do already have one, so I will be using that one, but I will be censoring it as it is mine. So get your own. When we set up that Cloudflare domain, it's going to give us a tunnel token. So anytime someone hits that domain, it's going to route it through the tunnel token into Nginx Proxy Manager, and that will allow us to connect locally to our server when we're outside our local area network. Now, once that's done, we're going to be able to point it to apps like Seerr, like Radar, Sonar, so we can access them through various domains. And if that meant nothing to you and seemed like a lot of overwhelming technical jargon, do not worry. This is probably the simplest way to do it. So before we deploy anything, I'm just going to create my Nginx Proxy Manager folder in my, there we go, Proxy. Nginx Proxy Manager. I don't think I need to create anything for Cloudflare. No, I don't. That's just going to run on the network itself, but I do need this Cloudflare tunnel token. So let's head over to Cloudflare. So the reason we use Cloudflare is we'll use a tunnel. So it basically helps securely route our traffic, and it can prevent things like DDoS attacks or bots or anything like that. It's nice and secure. So firstly, you are going to need to purchase a domain name. So if you go to domains and then registrations, if you buy a domain, you can type in whatever you like. So if your name is Jeff Smith, you can type in Jeff Smith and you can see if there's any domains available for Jeff Smith. So you can see you've got jeffsmithphotography.org at $7.50. You've got Jeff Smith Realty at $280. I wouldn't get that one. You've got jeff-smith.uk at a lovely $5.30 for the year. So whichever domain you decide to buy will be the link that your users access. So I already have a domain, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to obviously obfuscate it for the purposes of this tutorial, but I'll still talk you through all the necessary steps. So we're going to go to Zero Trust, and then we're going to go to Networks. We're going to go just to the network overview. So we need to create a tunnel. So we're going to go to Manage Tunnels, and we're going to add a tunnel. So you can give your tunnel a name, whatever you want. I'm just going to call it RetroPup-tunnel, and I'm going to save that tunnel. So what you're going to do is if you go to Docker, you change your device's operating system to Docker, and then we're going to copy this entire box. And then what you're going to need to do is everything after where it says token here, we're going to need to copy that. But obviously, it's deliberately hidden it for security. So I'm just going to copy this. I'm going to put it into a tab on my separate monitor. I'm going to take the token and then so it's everything after where it says token. And I'm going to replace this bit of text here, your Cloudflare tunnel token here. I'm just going to paste my token over that. And then once that's done, I'm going to redeploy it. So I'm obviously going to skip this bit because it's my token. Get your own, and we'll go from there. So we can see now that the Cloudflare token. So we can see now that because we've added that Cloudflare token, we're not getting any errors and it is running. And if I click into here and check the logs, you can see that it's done all its pre-checks and it's all happy. Okay, so when you've set up your tunnel and your token, we're going to need to set up our host names. So these consist of our subdomain, our domain, and then where it's going to point to on our server. So for our subdomain, I'm just going to call it Seerr. I'm going to select my domain name from the dropdown. Obviously, this will be censored, but whatever domain name you've purchased will be here on the dropdown. And then that is the link that your users will access. So for service, we're going to do a HTTP request, and we're going to point this to our local device IP. In my case, 192.168.1.58. And then for the port number, we're going to do port 80. And it's going to create the DNS record. So you can see here, I've got mine at the bottom, and I've also got loads of other services that I've set up. This is my original tunnel, which is why I've had to add the censoring. So back in Nginx Proxy Manager, we are going to go to Proxy Hosts. We're going to add one. For domain name, we're just going to start typing it. So our domain name will be Seerr dot, oh, 2 R's, dot, whatever your domain name is. We'll click Create. And then for the host name, that will just be our local IP address. And then for the forward port, it's going to be, in the case of Seerr, 5055. And then we want to block common exploits and enable WebSocket support. So this will just allow it to handle the request directly. And then we'll hit save. Okay, so I did just run into some rather bizarre issues. Not really sure what happened, as the setup was exactly the same as how I had it previously. However, I was able to get it to work by, if you go back to your tunnel and you go to your Seerr subdomain and you click edit, rather than set the URL to your device's IP, if you set it to the container name, but still at port 80 and then save it, it seemed to work fine. So if I go to Seerr, there we go, it's logged straight in to Seerr remotely. And this will work on my phone or for any of your users. If you have given your user a local user, they will sign in with their email address or password here. Or if they're a Plex user, they can just sign in with their Plex login. And that is Seerr, probably my favorite app that sits on top of my media stack. Not only does it handle those requests from friends and family when I can't be bothered dealing with them, but also it's a great way to discover new media, new films, new TV shows, or even hidden gems that you might have missed from previous years. It's a great way to discover as well as handle those requests. Now, next week, we're going to dive a little bit more into the weeds of quality management, because at this point, your media server might be getting a little bit full, especially if you're on limited space. So we're going to be looking at all things quality and custom formats. So be sure to tune in next Sunday. As always, I'd appreciate a like and a comment. If you've got any questions or you're having issues, please comment them below. Or if you just want to say thanks, it's always appreciated. Make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell so on Sundays you get alerted immediately. Take care, and I'll see you next Sunday.